$265,959 in 30 days with Google Ads alone. That's exactly what we scaled this e-commerce brand right here from the period of November 26, 2024 all the way to December 25th of 2024. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly how we made this happen step by step so you can apply this strategy to your own e-commerce brand. But before any of that, let's first take some time to understand this brand in a little bit of more detail and understand the background of this brand. So a little bit of that business context. This brand specifically is in the kitchen knives and accessories niche. Basically, anything related to the kitchen, this brand sells, such as aprons, such as other kitchen related products and accessories. And it is a fully on bootstrap D2C business. This is a brand which came to us under my Google Ads agency a couple of months back in June of 2024. And during that time, they were completely bootstrapped. They had no other outside sourcing or funding of any sort. They had no investor. So basically, Google Ads was something they had to make work. And in order to even test it out to see if it even works at a great level of scale, they had to invest their own money from their own pockets. And one of the main reasons why they even came to us under my agency was because previously they had been running Google Ads for some time. However, for whatever reason, they could just not break $10,000 to $20,000 per month in ad spend from Google. And I'm gonna go over exactly what I found out, the main reason why they couldn't really scale with Google Ads. But one of the main reasons was during that time, they had no real strategy in place. Basically, they were doing something I call the set and forget method. Now, if we go back in time, look at what was going on with this brand all time, we can see that this brand has essentially been on Google for quite some time now. It's not really a brand new brand on Google because it has been having some activity since 2021. However, if we look at this activity from a monthly basis, we can see during this time period, July 2022, 23, etc., they were really not that scalable, first of all, and second, their return on ad spend, it was not where they wanted it to be, like how it was when we started work with them, which was basically June of 2024. But for the longest time, they didn't know what to do. And one thing I noticed was because of their ad strategy, they were essentially doing a lot of retargeting. In fact, 80% of the traffic and sales you see here, it was because of retargeting sales. I mean, if we go back to December 1st of 2023, all the way to the end of May of 2024, because June is when we started work, we can see majority of their campaigns were, first of all, standard shopping campaigns. For whatever reason, they had never really upgraded their campaign approach ever since Smart Shopping ended and Performance Max came into light, and they were relying fully on their outdated campaign approaches. This was one of the main reasons they could really not scale during this time. However, one of the other reasons why they were also struggling to scale was because from their experience, what they noticed was this brand does exceptionally well during the summer times and during Q4. The rest of the month, it is sort of just kind of cruising by. It's not really scaling. It's not really getting any types of decent traction. And this is something they didn't know how to fix, because if you think about it, kitchen knives and just kitchen accessories, they don't really seem to be that seasonal if you think in terms of common sense. And the reality is the search volume for this kind of brand is fairly consistent throughout the months. However, if this brand is not able to make the scale consistent for their products, it's essentially because their strategy sucks or they just have not found the right approach when it comes to Google Ads. But one of the good things that this brand had going on for them was a fairly high average order value. Now, they were selling premium knives and premium knife bundles and sets and so on and so forth, hence why their average order value is roughly $401. And because of their high AOV, their break-even ROAS was on the lower end. It was a 3x only, and they wanted to make this brand work within the United States. Now, one thing you want to understand when this brand came to us during the early portion of February, March, April, May, was this brand had not broken $150,000 a month in revenue during their existence. So they didn't know what a $200,000, $500,000 a month even looked like, because that never really crossed it with their products. And out of this 150,000, only 20% was coming from Google. Keep in mind, as I said earlier, 80% of Google Ads traffic was retargeting, but just in total revenue, barely 20% was coming from Google. The rest was coming from Meta ads. It was also coming from a little bit of TikTok and organic traffic. And what they wanted to achieve with this brand, at least from Google Ads, was a 3.5x ROAS and beyond. Now, of course, there were a lot of problems initially which were stopping this brand from achieving these kinds of levels. And these are problems I often see with a lot of brands I still talk with to this day under my agency, which, by the way, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling your brand to the next level, go on to my website at yourmarketing.com, schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen. But one of the first major problems this brand had was with the campaign strategy itself. As I showed earlier, this brand, for whatever reason, was heavily reliant on standard shopping campaigns. Now, they were running this on a smart bidding-based approach. What you want to understand is standard shopping campaign, just the campaign type itself, is very limited because it lacks a lot of the artificial intelligence and a lot of the intelligence in general that performance max campaigns generally have. This was kind of what was leading them to not scale. For a long period of time, from December to basically May, they'd only been able to spend roughly $28,000 and $15,000 on some of their highest spending campaign types, despite having a budget of $100 a day and beyond. This is a very low amount. This just simply means that these campaign types, they were not able to fully spend their total budget that was supposed to be spent. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough in terms of a campaign strategy, this brand was fully reliant on just the shopping side of things. Meaning there was no search campaigns really at a great level of scale. Demand gen was never tested. YouTube was never tested. And these three campaign types are the highest buying intent campaign types you can have alongside a shopping campaign. But on top of that, with the standard shopping campaigns that they had running, they had arbitrary random numbers set in terms of the restriction. So if we go on over to their standard shopping campaigns, what we can understand is that the types of restriction that they had, like for example 150%, this was an arbitrary number. First of all, their break-even was a 3x. So setting this campaign at a 150% target ROAS didn't make sense at all. Second, if you set low arbitrary numbers like these, which are basically guesses, what happens is if Google is for whatever reason able to achieve this number or is slightly above this ROAS target you set, Google stops trying to overachieve your results. It's going to keep things steady. That means your brand will essentially plateau in terms of scalability. On the opposite side, if your target ROAS is 150 and it's not able to achieve these numbers, let's say it was at a 130 or 110, what will happen is now Google will start to destroy your ad spend and make it go closer and closer to zero, at least with this campaign, until it hits your numbers. And what does this do? On the top line, this reduces your top line revenue significantly and it causes unnecessary fluctuation. So that's why I always say you want to use target ROAS and target CPA restrictions with caution. But if that wasn't enough, now moving on to the product feed, the foundations of true Google at scale, it was basically a total mess for this brand. When I say a mess, what I mean is the product titles for a lot of these products, they were branded product titles, which work better for Facebook ads. Literally 2-word product titles. And this is not ideal for Google because Google needs two things for the product title to work. Number one, high perceived value. Number two, proper SEO techniques. The first portion, high perceived value, was taken care of, but SEO was nowhere in sight. As a result, this brand was heavily relying on retargeting sales and branded sales. But in addition, because this brand sells knives, what was happening was they were using a lot of plain, simple images, which a lot of their competitors use. And what this did was it made the brand completely blend in with the rest. That's why if we look at the CTR during that time period for a lot of these products, they were on the lower end. Now, in this situation, 0.66, 0.59, they might seem like decent numbers. However, your main goal should always be to have a CTR above 1%, which eventually we made happen for this brand. But essentially, there were a certain repercussions that this brand had to face because of all of these problems. Number one repercussion that they had was that the algorithm was completely unoptimized. Although they were spending $10,000, $20,000 a month, and that seemed like decent scale, what was going on was a lot of this was retargeting, a lot of this was branded search, and ultimately they had low cold traffic scale because of this. I mean, you can't just expect the algorithm to magically start going after big, broad keywords and start getting a lot of cold traffic if you don't train the algorithm properly. But this was leading to a lot of search impression share and click share issues. Now, search impression share, this metric tells you how many impressions your brand and your products are getting versus what's available in the market. In this situation, even after going after retargeting audiences, this brand was getting less than 30% search impression share. This is for their own retargeting audiences, by the way. Cold traffic is out of the question because it'd probably be non-existent. But search impression share, even for retargeting and branded search, was less than 30. Click share, meaning how many clicks that their ads were getting compared to what's available in the market, was 13%. super low numbers, because with search impression share, you want to be between 30 to 50 for cold traffic and retargeting combined. For click share, you want to be between 10 to 30%. These are ideal numbers, which indicate that your brand is in a decent level of scale. But that was nowhere in sight for this brand, and their conversion rates were super elevated because there was such a big retargeting focus. I mean, 3% or 5% was normal for this brand, and they were quite happy about this, but the reality was it was just retargeting sales. So it was expected to have high conversion rates. And ultimately, the biggest repercussion of all was this was leading to a lot of fluctuations for its brand. If we go back to the all campaigns level and look at all of their campaigns in detail, we can essentially see that all of their campaigns were just not performing as they wanted them to be. There were a lot of ups and downs. If you look right here, they would have certain good days that it would just go all the way down basically, and then it would go back up a little bit. But each day, maybe some days they would do 2.6K in sales, very next day barely $200 in revenue. These were very drastic differences, 80 to 90% differences in revenue, and this was a direct indicator that their strategy was just not right for their brand. So here is kind of where we came in, and we started redoing basically everything from the ground up. We began to work with the product feed here. First thing we did is we took all of their branded titles for a lot of their knives and all other accessories, and we changed it into the branded plus SEO title approach. Meaning, if their title was a two-word title, like for example, the premium knife, we changed it to something like premium kitchen knife set or premium kitchen knife bundle set, perfect for cooks, perfect for homeowners, etc. These are just random words I'm saying right now, but essentially that's kind of the research we did to add more search engine optimization and to add more perceived value to these products. But we then moved on to the product images, because as I mentioned earlier, product images were very bland. They were very similar to the competitors. As a result, this entire brand was blending in with everybody else. So what we did is we came in and we changed everything to be the opposite of the competitors. And in this situation, majority of the product images were plain white background images. We didn't come in with the lifestyle image for this kitchen knife. Instead, we changed the way this kitchen knife was laid on the screen. So we made ours vertical, up and down, or we slanted ours slightly compared to what was going on within the market. These are very simple and subtle ways to change the entire trajectory of your brand, especially if you don't have the power to take new photography for your product. And that's not all, because now we zoomed out a bit even more, and then we started focusing on the business approach itself. First thing we did is we actually lowered their average order value, because we understood that 80 to 90% of their audience is not going to be able to afford a $400 kitchen knife set. So instead, we broadened their approach from just the most premium luxury knives, and we made it kind of affordable to everybody. So this brought down the average order value from roughly $450 to around the $380, $400 range, but that was enough to start scaling this brand to bigger revenue levels. In addition, we stopped focusing on just standalone products, and rather we began focusing more on the product bundle. So if we go all the way here basically to the end of June 17th, for example, all the way to the end of November, we can see things really took a drastic turn for this brand if we change it to a weekly basis. And if we look at the overall ad spend, first of all, we shut off that standard shopping campaign approach, and we made it more of a performance max based approach, because smart bidding was the way to go. And as you can see here, this campaign alone ended up spending $46,000, where in this same time period, the other standard shopping campaigns they once had running were not even able to spend a quarter of this number. So this was a very drastic change for this brand. We completely stopped the manual bidding and standard shopping campaign approaches. But in addition, the bundles approach, these performance max campaigns essentially started going after a lot of these bundle-based products. As you can see, the average order value is $400, and some of the other PMAXs, which we also stopped, were around this range as well, going after these bundled products. And essentially, what we wanted to do for this brand was we no longer wanted this brand to rank number 1 or number 2 or even number 3 when it came to Google shopping ads. Essentially, what we wanted to do was we wanted this brand to rank all the way in the back. And now you might hear this and think I'm completely crazy for saying this, but hear me out. For instance, if we look right here, the brand which we are working with right now is this brand right here. We're ranking number 5, but we're able to still scale this brand consistently to great levels. I mean, if we change this time period to just the last 30 days and we compare it to the previous 30-day period, we can see this brand has grown by 300% from Google, 13% increase in the return on ad spend, despite ranking number 5. Now, why is this more lucrative than ranking number 1, number 2, or number 3? This is because these competitors right here, ranking number 1, 2, or 3, are probably bidding 20 to 50% higher than us. They're losing out on that much level of profits or even more, and they're basically not able to scale their products to the levels they want to because of this decrease in profitability. And that's something you never want to do. You never want to start bidding wars. You never want to start price wars with Google Ads, because that's the fastest way to lose with Google. So instead, we took a little bit more of a back burner approach. We lowered our bids a bit to be more profitable, and we just basically focused on the foundations, the fundamentals. As I said earlier, our product image was much different than everybody else's, and this is our product as well. But that was enough to really scale this brand to the very next level. It was not about just ranking number 1 or number 2. Rather, it's about getting your customers' attention, even if you're all the way in the back. Now, in terms of the Google Ads strategy, as I mentioned earlier, we took that standard shopping approach and moved it completely to the PMAXs because it was limiting the scale due to the nature of standard shopping campaigns. The biggest thing we did here was we changed the approach from complexity to simplicity. And what I mean by that is earlier, they had a bunch of different standard shopping campaigns, 4 or 5, then a few other campaigns after this they were running as well. And all of this was just causing a lot of noise in the market, but it was not moving the brand in any specific direction. So we completely got rid of that complexity. We made things simple with only a 3 campaign approach, because that's what we found works the best for this brand. And we're actually growing it with a 3 campaign approach only. Now, in terms of testing, when we first really started testing out the different strategies and whatnot, we wanted to focus more on the performance max because, as I said earlier, standard shopping is very limiting when it comes to scale. Now, in terms of the performance max, the only testing strategy we really implemented was the all products PMax versus the excluded products PMax. And the only reason we did this and not really implement something like a TPS approach with proper segregation is because this brand doesn't sell too many different SKUs. It has roughly 40 to 50 SKUs only. So this approach works much better for a brand like this. But in terms of search campaigns, we tested a dynamic search approach along with a collection-based approach. But in the end, we ended up figuring out that the dynamic search campaigns work the best. Now, once we had something that was working, once this 3 campaign approach was working, now we needed to know how can we scale this brand without further adding more complexity again. And the best way we did this is by basically increasing the budgets or decreasing them when the campaigns were not performing. We increased the target ROAS when things were bad. We decreased them when things were good, essentially. And most important of all, we completely devoured the insights and reports section, which a lot of brands don't even do. Basically going inside the insight section right here and figuring out what kind of keywords the brand ranks for, how those keywords are performing, etc., to improve the product feed based on that data. That's essentially what we did every 7 days, and we completely took the focus from branded keywords all the way over to just cold traffic-based keywords. And we did this by adding them to product titles, descriptions, etc. every 7 days. That's very important to do in terms of optimization and scaling. You want to have a set schedule of when you change things. What was the end result of us working with this brand from essentially June 8th of 2024 to December 25th of 2024? And just a disclaimer, we still work with this brand to this day. It's a long-term brand we will be working with for the upcoming months and years even. However, for the time being, the results that we have gotten for this brand from June 8th, essentially, which is when we really started working with this brand, to December 25th, we can look right here. In total, we've been able to spend $118,000 in total ad spend to generate back over $500,000 at a 4.25x ROAS in total. If we compare it to the previous period, we can see this brand has just grown by 72%. And the ROAS has slightly decreased only by 1% roughly. So the revenue has increased exponentially while keeping the ROAS fairly consistent, which is of course the main goal for any brand out there. But if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling your brand to the very next level, go onto my website at euromarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen.